This is day 6 of the January 92 7-day retreat at Springwater. I'll read the questions that I've remembered to put down. About what you said today, about working out of a space of no division. What about the fact that everything in this world, everybody, everywhere, works in division and sustains it? We so quickly get sucked into it. How do you keep out of it? After the large group discussion yesterday, I realized I had divided up the group into the intellectual meditators and the non-intellectual ones. And I put myself into the group of the non-intellectual ones. And I found I didn't really listen to the ones I had categorized as the intellectuals. I didn't listen to what they were saying. I didn't really hear it. Thus I also saw that I divided people here into those who get up early in the morning and those who don't. Of course, I belong to the group that gets up. I realized that this dividing up of people into groups makes me feel important. Superior, is what the person said. Other divisions were listed. How we divide up those with whom I work, those with whom I room. And so often the polarity that's set up and the feeling of a superiority that is sustained with that. Can you say something about time? I am anxious and have been anxious from the first day to get my work done in a certain amount of time. And it always seems to take longer. At home I get a lot done in 10 minutes, but I also want to get more done. What is this thing of time? I work many hours a day in the hospital, which is high intensity and high pressure. How can that go along with my meditation practice? I used to wonder, why is Toni reading all these questions? But later I realized that these are not other people's questions, but they are my own. Could you maybe at the beginning of a retreat in the opening talk explain what you mean by the word seeing? Or rather, point out that the seeing does not mean cognitive seeing or seeing with one's eyes, but something else. In your talks, you usually speak about the 7,000 things of the conditioned mind. Of course, this is infinite stuff. I don't remember how this was put, but something like, the danger with always speaking about the conditioned mind, the 7,000 or 10,000 things, is that you leave out something else, which is not conditioned. Something like that was it. I feel that the important thing is not all this concern about the self or the no self or clarity or seeing or not sleeping or not seeing or sleeping or awakening, but opening up the heart. The person said then, when the heart is open, everything is of one life. It is life. Whether it's downtown Manhattan or here in this place. He had just made word notes. Someone said, so easily in your talking, and what I hear of the people who have questions that you read, there seems to be a coming down on our thinking, on thought, on oneself, as though it was something bad, something to be avoided, something to be condemned or cut off, or it should disappear. Why don't you rather talk about respecting thought? Respecting all of these things that happen so we don't fall into this trap of condemning, fault finding, respecting everything. And two people in this retreat brought up an old Zen dialogue, which I actually used a lot in the past. It's the one asking of another, who is it that walks alone without any companion? Who is it that walks alone without any companion? And the response is, I will tell you after you have swallowed up all the waters of the great river in one gulp. One version goes on, and the questioner says, it's already swallowed up. And then the response to that is, then I don't have to tell you. This is also what was said. Isn't it that we have to die every instant? That there have to be a dying every moment? For the new to be? How to bring all of this together, the whole thing. How are we listening? How are we speaking? Where are we coming from? Krishnamurti always used to say, we are in communion when both of us, or all of us, you and I, are on the same level at the same time with the same intensity. If in one person the intellect is engaged, that's how one hears and thinks and speaks, and may not realize it, because the intellect may say, you're whole, you're listening to wholeness, you're not divided, all is one. And if the intellect is engaged, of course the whole body is always engaged in staying alive in these marvelous, mysterious processes that we have mentioned, the blood circulation, the immune system, metabolism and breathing and all of that. The whole regeneration of the body all the time, nothing remaining the same. Replacement of cells, cell division. That's going on even though thought seems to be the predominant thing at this moment. But one may not see it that way, because thought can say, no, you're involved totally, wholly. But if it is the intellect, the word, the thought that is listening, then what someone says will be heard as being intellectual, when it may not be. We speak in words, but do the words just express, in whatever limited way, something deeper that is not verbal and cannot completely be expressed verbally? If you and I listen with it, the wholeness of our being, not believing in our dividedness, and not thinking about wholeness, just listening, being totally here, all of us involved, openly, then the words fall into place. And lightly, not rigidly. They need not to be insisted upon. Words can be changed like clothes. What is important, what is of the essence, is the state in which the words are expressed. So one may look at the conditioned mind in these talks, and that's what we're doing most of the time, that is true. Because this is something we can look at and put into words, however incompletely or imperfectly. To look at what thought is doing, how it is masquerading for the truth, for an independent reality. How the label becomes the person, the real thing. And just thinking about it gives the illusion that one is in touch with a real thing, with a real person, where one is just in touch with a label, a category, those intellectual meditators, and not listening. When that is talked about and discussed and looked at and wondered about, and it maybe becomes transparent in one instant, that transparency or that seeing of the truth of thought, what it does, and so forth, that is not conditioned. It doesn't depend on anything. It's there or it isn't there. Does that communicate itself? Regardless of the words that are used? I don't know. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. You see, the danger with speaking about the unconditioned, the one mind that we usually read on the seventh day, Wang Po, exalting in the one mind, and the beautiful way of putting it, or other people, Krishnamurti, talking about the immensity or whatever word he used, talking about even as little as I do talk about a state of non-division, undividedness, wholeness, in which the self-circuit, the me circuit of energy and thinking and emoting is quiet. The energy doesn't run in that circuit. Even the little that I may be speaking about it arouses responses in people who say to me, "Don't talk about that, it just makes me want that." Then I just have another desire, another thing I don't have and need to have. Talk about the state of our suffering, the state of our imprisonment. Look at our fears and things, not talk about this other. All it does to me is now feel bad that I don't have that and think I ought to have that too. So how are you going to proceed? Thinking about what everybody wants, or looking at wanting with a mind that does not divide into the wanters and the not wanters and the good and the bad and the right and the wrong. Just looking at what's there, what reveals itself when wanting arises. One could say wanting is infinite. There's always something else that one wants, including wanting not to want, or wanting to see clearly, wanting to open the heart, wanting to open heart and mind and the whole body. Can one look at wanting regardless of what the object of wanting is? Let it become transparent in oneself. Or maybe it stops on its own. It does sometimes. I remember very clearly when this happened. Years back, it was in the early 70s or end of 60s. The newly bought building of the Zen Center had burnt out. It wasn't completely gone, it was being refurbished. And retreats were held elsewhere. And this one retreat was held in somebody's spacious home which had a squash court in the basement, which was 2 stories of cinder block. Very little light, just, well, like basements have lights, little windows. But it was high ceiling. It appealed to me, not aesthetically, but it was a feel to a place with a high ceiling. At that time we were urged and pressured with stories and admonitions to sit late into the night, not just to sit all the regular sitting periods and breaks, but also into the night, maybe at best through the night. And to also be an example to new people. And somebody was just sitting in a sort of a middle aisle of 2 people next to each other. Was a person next to me who was new, had never been to a sesshin, and imbued with all the shoulds, including my own personal private ambition, which was just as large as anything else that was put on me. We come to places with our own ambitions already. We can't blame it on the place. It just hooks into what's already there. So the ambition to do well, to sit into the night, to show this person, to be an example to him, all of this provided tremendous energies to sit, including the pain that also gives you energy to get through it or become one with it. And little by little, people dropping out. That's how it was felt, going to bed. Like, it's not just the early people, but the late sitters. Feeling more and more important, more and more spiritual. And this man hung in there for quite a while. I had the feeling it was due to my sitting there that he hung in there. Sometimes he would be gone for a while and then he'd be there again. Then eventually he didn't come back. And I was alone in that high squash court. And suddenly realized, and that was the most amazing, moment of my life that there was no wanting. That wanting was gone. It was not there. There was no desire. Not the depressiveness of having no desires or not wanting anything or nothing being good enough, but no, it was just not there. And in that not being anybody, not needing to be anybody or anything. And see, in retrospect, it happened after this whole ambitious trip. You could say, if anybody in that kind of a mind state, what can they realize? What can they come upon? But things happen on their own in very mysterious and amazing ways. Who did it? What caused it? You don't know. You can't know. There's no knowing. There's only the ending of wanting. So even though wanting seems to be infinite and going on forever, it can also end. Now, if you asked, did it end forever? Of course it didn't. Programs are deeply wired into us. But once it's clear that it doesn't have to run, or that there is something else that has nothing to do with wanting, and therefore not any fear either, that goes completely hand in hand. It's the other amazing thing. It was nothing to be afraid of. It was nothing. So once it's realized that this is possible for a human being a moment ago filled with ambitions, and the separation that ambition brings, and it ends. Something shifts and things become more transparent. And there's an interest to find out more about this mind. How it gets so caught up in itself and so fixed and opinionated and concluded. And believing in its separateness. But that separateness can in itself become transparent. You see, I don't need to use the word see at all. It becomes transparent. It is transparent. Because there's no seer. It's just transparent. Seen through. Clear for what it is. And nobody is doing it or has done it or will do it again. That's also clear. The effort to reach that again is more of these 7,000 or 10,000 things which can become transparent as one looks from moment to moment in what we call this living, in the conditioned state most of the time. But the conditioned state can become transparent. And the transparency is this unconditioned, non-divided, quiet, spacious, nothingness, wholeness, call it what you will. Is it here? Is it operating, functioning? Then we'll agree on the words and we won't worry too much about them. Although I appreciate when people tell me what associations certain words elicit in their minds which are not helpful in following a talk. I always take note of it, and if I remember it, and I usually think some about it, look at it, then it may affect the next talk. This one person saying, can't we say respecting things rather than seeing them? I looked at that a lot, I thought about it, but to me, respecting, which incidentally means seeing too. Spect is, I wrote the word spect as seeing in Latin. And means again and again and again, over and over, we got to see. That's respecting. But not the way it's commonly used. Respect means not condemn it. And I could understand what the person was saying. The condemnation, the judgment, the being down on oneself or others comes almost inseparably linked with a perception. That's what we're trying to become aware of, to see that, to respect it. It is extra, isn't it, just to see it, that it is so. Respecting, then I have to do something. I have to remind myself, don't just see it, you got to respect it. And that there is a doer again, at least this is how I feel about this word. Somebody doing something to avoid something else, namely putting oneself down. But can putting oneself down, finding fault with oneself and others, can that become transparent for what it is, what it does, the narrowness of it, the divisiveness of it, and maybe establishing my superiority or my inferiority, which has been my lifelong image of myself. Good or bad, I cling to it. Just let it all be transparent. Why do I sound? It comes back to me a lot. Why do I sound as though in talking about thinking or seeing or the way the conditioned mind operates, why do I sound as though I was condemning it or saying it shouldn't be like this? It should be otherwise, or you should be otherwise. Or is it that we bring this into the listening? I don't mean to say that, but I leave open whether I sound this way. I have to be careful not to sound too intense at times, like a finger-wagging mother. I don't feel like this. I feel like looking at things together. We're all in this. This conditioned mind is what we all participate in. Everybody. You and I and Krishnamurti and all the Zen masters. Priests, ministers, popes. All one needs to do is look, listen inwardly, or open up. And there it is, the conditioning, the program. The passionate plea to open the heart. That this is the only important thing, to have the heart open. How do we open our hearts? Is this another quest now for a how-to? Another wanting? One has to look. Love, wanting to love, realizing that maybe there have been these moments where there was love. And at that moment, surely it's not verbalized that way. But the love, the beauty of it, the warmth, the non-separation, the end of problems, the end of fear, and moving toward each other. Or maybe the other is not moving, but one is moving toward people, things. It's overflowing, spreading, permeating. How does one reach that? Is that again something that has to become a problem, a task, and to find the right technique, the right tool to get there? because this is how we are conditioned to think. Got to find a way of seeing, of opening the heart, a practice, pursuing it, putting oneself into it, and yet in a moment of quietness, not being in the way, not concerned about oneself. I'm not saying concern about oneself is bad, but it can stop, it can end. At that moment, maybe there's this strange thing which we call love. And then a little fan moving around, spreading the hot air, seems to manifest and express love. A blade of grass. Somebody walking down the hall. It's old, it's ancient, it's the seeking or preaching love. The whole Christian message. That's what Jesus talked about, to love your neighbor as yourself. And as a child, I felt more comfortable with this love expressed by Jesus than his father, who was vengeful, angry, and jealous. In my feeling, by reading about him in my little book, my little Bible book, with pictures. I was very scared of this Father God. Jesus was easier to live with. It's almost a facetious way of putting it, that there was no threat coming from that figure as I saw it, the pictures of it and the words that were said by him. I used to love this sermon. Was it Paul or one of the disciples saying that, I only remember it in German, I have to translate it, even though I was speaking with the tongues of angels, if I did not have love, I would just sound like metal. Which brings to mind in Poland, where we have a small retreat outside of Warsaw, doing the afternoon walk, walking through a very rutty, incredibly potholey street. You have never seen potholes like this in all your life. You could disappear in one. But walking on, have to walk someplace, and all of a sudden the street became paved, and in the distance a beautiful area with a Catholic church. Lovely trees there. And as I entered there was a large area fenced in with a walk in a square where all the different stations of the cross were in semi-relief, very dramatically represented. Jesus carrying his cross, being whipped and finally put on a cross and then taken down. I looked at that every noon at this relief. But entering, there was a man kneeling and just putting the finishing touches on the pavement underneath a sculpture. Huge, big sculpture. And what it represented was a big metal heart, sort of in a modernistic way, with lots of pictures sort of engraved in it. Not just semi-relief, also about the story of Jesus. And this huge heart there, suspended in some kind of a scaffolding. And the man who was putting the bricks in there for the pavement, he saw that I was stopping, and he looked up and he was starting to talk to me in Polish. I didn't understand that. And then he sort of banged at the metal, and his face expressed great value. It looked like brass or something, probably very valuable in Poland at that time, and the sound it made. After that, whenever I entered or left, we sort of greeted each other. The heart. On the reliefs of the passion story of Jesus, there's of course the bleeding heart, the spear into the side and the heart bleeding for mankind. We've wanted that love. I don't know what we really wanted, because in the name of Christianity we've killed and in I don't know how many wars, tortured each other. See the power of ideas, and to discern that the idea of the bleeding heart or the open heart is not the open heart. It can masquerade for that. And to respect the power of thought, appreciate how strong it is, meaning not revealing but veiling the reality of my and our daily actions in the name of love. What is an open heart? What is love? Question comes up in every retreat. And it's good to leave that question sit there, not to have answers for it, but wonder. And maybe get in touch with a closed heart, with all of our ideas about others and ourselves, superiority, inferiority. To let it all become transparent. Learning about our moment-to-moment living. In this moment, not only in retrospect of what I did, that's what we usually do, and then project into the future what I should be doing instead of what I did. But watch what I'm doing now, what is happening this moment. All of myself watching, is that possible? Yes, it is possible. It may not happen very much, but it's not impossible. And here the question comes in from the man who says, I work long hours in the hospital, the pressure, the intensity. No time left, almost, for a hobby. I love to play the guitar. Not much time. Not much time to be with a spouse. How does this all fit in with my practice, meditation? How does anything fit in? Or is this an impossible task? But what is simple is to be here this moment, whether it's in an emergency room or playing the guitar, washing a toilet, walking, sitting quietly, in an argument, or just looking at the snow falling gently. Is one there, all of oneself, this moment? That ties it all together intellectually, doesn't it? All I need to be is be there every moment. I've got it. And that feeling, I've got it, gives a good feeling. It gives good energy. Maybe with that good energy, something is seen about the thought arousing energy. That's the conditioned mind. But the seeing is not, or well, I can use the word, can't I? The seeing is not evaluating. It's doing nothing. It's just what is. It's clear. It's there. This moment. no fault in it and no credit, no merit. Because that's all the circuit of me, needing to be good, fearing to be bad, or needing to be bad and fearing to be good. So how does this relate to someone saying, don't we need to die every moment, to be reborn every moment? Swallowing up all the waters of the river in one gulp. In being there with all the sound of somebody moving, not somebody moving, the sound of it. No judgment. The voice, the talk, the gestures, the heartbeat, the buttocks on the seat, breathing, all of it there. What else is there? Does the thought come in? Yeah, this is what I want to keep. This is what I want to do. Can that be seen and in the seeing gulped up? I don't need to be anybody. I don't need to be good. I don't need to continue. Because it's just idea. This organism takes care of itself in a marvelous way, which we will never completely analyze and comprehend. We will never understand all of the universe and its mysterious functioning. But it's functioning, it's operating, it's there, it's here. And to say, I am this or that, that's extra. It may give energies. It may be a habit. It may be socially reinforced. It is. But it's still a habit. And it is not needed for the mysterious functioning of all of these organisms and entities that are alive in one aliveness. Early in the retreat, someone mentioned the fear, intense fear of dying, having been with this person for as long as she can remember. Fear of death, fear of harm coming to the soul, maybe during death, after death, or in life. Fear for the soul, fear of dying. What if we died right now? Our last breath taken. No more oxygen to the brain, slumping over. What of it? It would happen, wouldn't it? It has happened to millions and millions and millions of human beings. It'll happen to all of us, for some in an easier way than for others, but the last breath is the same. Oxygen not reaching the brain anymore. I know very little about all the processes. It's the same for all of us. It happens. And every human being to whom it has happened has been up to it. It has happened. That's what I used to think. I used to almost admire all these people who had died. I was so afraid of it. But all the others could do it. And one day we'll be one of them who also is doing it and has done it. Whether fearful thought will circulate throughout mind and body remains to be seen, or whether fearful thought becomes transparent for what it is. In the transparency, there is no fear and no wanting. No wanting to continue and no fearing of ending. Because this wanting or fearing thought can be quiet. Not made quiet by effort, because then the effort manifests thought. I should be quiet. I want to be rid of this. The moment we do something, we always do 10,000 things at the same time that we don't want to do. But they happen at the same time. Can't do one thing without doing at least one other thing. The question has come again and again, what should I do when I sit down? What am I supposed to do? Nothing. Doing nothing. Sitting quietly, doing nothing. Spring comes and the grass grows all by itself. And this doing nothing does not mean not getting out of bed anymore because one is so depressed. That's doing something. Because if one is depressed and wishes to stay in bed, that's all right. I'm not putting that down. But maybe we should put it this way, not knowing what to do. We don't know what to do. Maybe this mind which constantly needs to know and scheme and plot and figure out can come to rest. I don't know what to do. And in this not knowing, there may be a sudden touch with everything that's actually going on, really, not in our thought, but really happening inside and out. It's very subtle, very quiet, very spacious, and not of me or you. And in it is love. Love and what some call wisdom, others call intelligence. Knowing what to do when it needs to be done. We will end here for today.